The Forgotten Road. In the small town of Danversville, there was a road no one talked about. It wasn't on any maps, and no one could even remember its name. People just called it that road. Parents told their kids to stay far away from it, though nobody seemed to know why. 17-year-old Jamie Holden stood at the entrance to the road one cloudy afternoon. The trees around it were thick, and the air smelled like wet dirt and something metallic, like blood. Jamie hadn't come here by choice. His friends, Matt and Billy, had dared him to walk the road after school. "Come on, Holden," Billy had said, smirking. "You chicken or what?" "Yeah, just walk it and bring something back," Matt added. "Prove you're not scared." Jamie wasn't about to back down. He didn't want to be the joke of the school. So, with one last glance over his shoulder, he stepped onto the road. At first, the road was quiet. Too quiet. Jamie walked slowly, his sneakers crunching on gravel that felt loose and uneven. The trees on either side seemed to press closer the further he went, their branches almost blocking out the light. He glanced back after a few minutes, but stopped in his tracks. The entrance was gone. The road now stretched endlessly in both directions, the woods behind him darker than before. "Okay," Jamie muttered to himself. "Just keep walking. It's not like the road's alive or something." But deep down, he wasn't so sure. After a while, the road split into two paths. Jamie frowned. He could have sworn it had been a straight shot when he started. The left path looked wider and less overgrown, so he chose that one. As he walked, the air grew heavy, like a weight pressing on his chest. That's when he saw the first strange thing, an old weathered signpost leaning at an angle. It read, "Remembrance." Beneath the word was a date, August 3rd, 1974. Jamie didn't know what it meant, but something about it sent a shiver down his spine. He kept going, faster now. Then he saw the next marker, a rusty bicycle lying on its side. The frame was bent, and the back wheel spun slowly, even though there was no wind. That's when he heard the whispers. The whispers were soft at first, like someone murmuring just out of earshot. Jamie froze, straining to listen. "Hello," he called, his voice shaking. No answer. But the whispers didn't stop. They grew louder, like a dozen voices all talking at once. He couldn't make out what they were saying, but they sounded angry. Jamie picked up the pace, his heart pounding. When he glanced over his shoulder again, the road behind him wasn't the same. The trees were blackened, like they'd been burned, and the sky above them glowed an eerie orange. He turned back around and saw someone standing in the distance. The figure was tall and thin, almost impossibly so. Its outline shimmered, like it wasn't fully real. Jamie's mouth went dry. "Who are you?" he yelled. "What is this place?" The figure tilted its head, and suddenly, Jamie's mind was flooded with images. A woman screaming as flames consumed her house. A man hanging from a tree, his face twisted in fear. Children running through the woods, crying, their faces pale with terror. Jamie dropped to his knees, clutching his head. The visions were so vivid, so real. When he looked up, the figure was gone. Jamie forced himself to his feet and kept moving, though his legs felt heavy, like he was dragging them through mud. The trees grew closer and closer, their branches scratching at his arms. Finally, he stumbled into a clearing. In the middle of it stood a massive oak tree, its roots twisted like claws, gripping the earth. Beneath the tree was a shallow grave, the dirt freshly turned. There was a wooden cross sticking out of the ground. Carved into it was a name, Jamie Holden. Jamie stumbled back, his breath catching in his throat. "No, no, no, no," he whispered. The whispers returned, louder now, filling his ears. They weren't just angry anymore, they were desperate. They called his name over and over, and then something touched his shoulder. Jamie spun around, but no one was there. Instead, the figure reappeared, standing inches from him. Its eyes were hollow, black voids, and its mouth twisted into a wide, unnatural grin. "You shouldn't have come here," it said, its voice dry and cracked. Before Jamie could scream, the ground beneath him gave way, pulling him into the dirt. He clawed at the earth, but it was no use. The last thing he saw was the oak tree above him, its branches swaying in a wind that didn't exist. The next day, Matt and Billy waited for Jamie at the edge of the woods. At first, they joked about how long he was taking. But when hours passed and Jamie still hadn't come back, their smiles faded. A week later, the sheriff found one of Jamie's sneakers on the road. Just one. His body was never found. And on quiet nights, if you stand at the edge of that road, you can still hear Jamie's voice, calling for help, trapped forever on the forgotten road.